yesterday we got into this discussion. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it is interesting, is that there is a reason with most first-round quarterbacks, they get drafted because they have, it's not about their college stats, it's about their traits. If you're drafting a college quarterback based on stats, it's Tim Tebow, you're a hack, you should be fired. Like, you draft quarterbacks based on size. One of the reasons I always like Sam Darnold. Big, thick, athletic, big arm, coachable, great traits. The minute he got to Carolina at the end, Minnesota, Seattle, he wins 75% of his games. Kyler Murray's not big, but he was a number one pick, and I know the GM that drafted him. Steve Keim's a buddy. He had great traits. He was the best high school football player ever out of Texas. He's incredibly elusive, and he's like Russell Wilson, but more athletic. He could have been a baseball player in the bigs, throws a great ball, but he's small. But what happens, and we see this now regularly in the NFL, if you get bad ownership, chaos, wrong coach, bad O-lines, quarterbacks can look really bad. And I was saying this yesterday. If you put Matt Stafford and Kyler Murray together, now think about this. Stafford has had 5 years of McVay, great ownership, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, great running backs, top tight end groups. And yet, Kyler Murray, who's had one Pro Bowler ever for a year that was a Pro Bowler on the O-line, ownership shaky, front office now, yikes, average rosters, Kyler Murray not only has the same passer rating, a significantly higher completion percentage, and much more athletic and elusive than Stafford, and we all know Stafford's going to the Hall of Fame. So do I think Kyler Murray's better than Stafford? No, I think Stafford's better. But it shows you, and Matt Stafford, by the way, had Calvin Johnson. You know, like outside of Randy Moss, probably the best college receiver I ever saw play. So my take isn't that Kyler Murray's going to be a Hall of Famer. It's that he was a distracted guy from baseball to video games, went to a bad organization that didn't have kind of the ability to get his act right. Right? Like, he is one of those guys that will be as good as where he lands. Now, there are guys like Andrew Luck or Josh Allen. They're going to win everywhere. There's guys like Fernando Mendoza. He's going to be ethical, good kid, work ethic everywhere. May not be great. Kyler's one of those guys, to me, that's very dependent on landing spot.
I mean, you know, at the heart of it, every quarterback is, you know, depending on truly how great you're going to be and are you going to win Super Bowls or not, it matters where you land. But trying to use these like blanket completion percentage and passer rating and comparing quarterbacks in this very general vague lens is an absolute silly battle. It's just an absolute silly battle when you're talking about teams, snorts, that are asking their quarterbacks to do such different things with such different rosters. Even comparing somewhat different eras considering how long Stafford was playing with the Lions and kind of how football was played. You know, Stafford is not like he's necessarily gone through like a million different generations of football like Tom Brady has, but like he's definitely experienced two different eras of the NFL for sure. And it's the same reason why that we can look at stats and see like, oh wow, Geno Smith has a high completion percentage and Tua has the 5th best passer rating in the NFL, right? And it's just like, okay, you know, like what do we do with that, right? And so it's just like those types of stats, those types of moments. I actually had a video that I made, I think like last summer. I forget exactly when, and I kind of did a little bit of a deep dive of like how do we actually evaluate quarterbacks, you know, and how do we make sense of quarterbacks that we know are not great. Like it's something, gee, that we all agree on, right? It's not like we're not trying to debate, you know, who's better, Lamar or Josh. It's not those types of conversations, but just like we know that we don't think that this quarterback is great, yet he has a higher passer rating than a quarterback that we absolutely all know is better, right? And a higher, and it's just what do we do with those types of things, right? How do we make sense of that? And there's no real easy answer unless you are watching and breaking down the film of every single snap. And it's why stats are so great, because I could just be like, well, what are the stats of this quarterback of the last 3 seasons, right? And that's why I'll often do just focus on, the most recent history, right? Like sometimes depending on the discussion, it makes sense to look at things farther back or whatever it is, depending on the conversation that we're looking to have. But as like a general rule of thumb, like I really am only ever going back the last couple of years, last few years. Like it depends on the conversation as a whole, but to me and I've criticized, not criticized Matthew Stafford, but I used Matthew Stafford's lack of success with Detroit and his lack of, playoff success until he got to Sean McVay and the Rams. Like I use that as a reference to be like, see, no matter how great you are, you still need support. And that is kind of counter to Colin right here where he's like, no, some quarterbacks work wherever you want. And it's like yes and no. Like Stafford would have always been a great quarterback, but like winning Super Bowls, like winning all these playoff games, like you got to have the Pukas, you got to have the Cooper Cups, you got to have the Sean McVays, etc., etc., etc. So, I snorts, just think we have to be kind of careful how we make some of these comparisons. And I'm not going to act like I have it all fleshed out because it's tricky. It's again, I know without a shadow of a doubt, Matthew Stafford is a significantly I'm saying a significantly better quarterback than Kyler Murray. And I don't care what pass rating or completion percentage shows me based off of his time in Detroit versus his time in, Arizona or, whatever exact metrics, Colin was using there. It's just like I don't care because I'm using the eye test. I'm using what I watch and what I see, the level of difficulty of the throws, the types of plays, etc. And that's, snorts, also a thing with someone like a Stafford where Stafford is a pure pocket passer, right? He is a pure pocket passer that unless you have the right coach or the right receivers, you're never really going to truly show what you can do. And I would say earlier on in his career and back when football was not played the way how it is, like I'm sure the types of throws that he was making and the things that he was doing, it's kind of similar to basketball where like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, like their shot selection it wasn't all about finding the open shooter that it was just take your shots like muscle up. Like it was the shot selection was just completely different and it was like yeah man just keep shooting like it was a different style of play so comparing that makes no sense and I would say that football is there's some similarities there in the in the 80s 90s 2000s etc. that I would say that we're kind of having here where that's not necessarily the case in the modern NFL so I would just, again, I'm just going to emphasize that. Like to me, and this is what I had said, I guess, whenever there was like the real conversations about Kyler Murray coming to Minnesota, like Kyler will be better with Minnesota. I do believe that. I really do, but it's not from my viewpoint necessarily going to be this difference maker. Are there going to be like potentially wildly exciting moments and moments when you're like, I think this is going to work. Like, oh my gosh, like this is going to work. I do feel that way, but I feel like it's a cousin of how sometimes I watch Dak Prescott. And this is not a knock on Dak. I'm just using it as a reference point of my own little journey with Dak of evaluating him over the years. There's moments that I watch Dak and I'm just like, man, this guy is an own quarterback. I'm like, he is a top quarterback. And then I watch plenty of other moments when I go, I don't know what you were doing here. Like you're never going to win with Dak as your quarterback. You're never going to be able to consistently win with Dak as your quarterback. And it's just like he makes some awesome plays and some terrible plays. He has some awesome moments and some terrible moments. Now make no mistake about it, there's truth to that for any quarterback. Stafford, Mahomes, Josh Elmer, there's plenty of moments when you're just like that was an awful play. That was a spectacular play, but it all depends on how many great plays and how many bad plays, right? It's just like what's the math add up there? And there was always spectacular potential with Kyler because that is the type of player that he brings. That is the type that he brings. But when you're also talking about a Kevin O'Neill offense, like you are looking to play a very buttoned up, let it rip offense, but it's just going to be very structured very on script, on time, and that's not the type of player that a Kyler Murray is. That's not unlike he brought up Russell Wilson. That's kind of a perfect example because I think it was either last year or the year before that. I assume it was probably when Russ was playing with the Steelers and was having some momentum. Gay Seal. I was kind of talking about that, like, Russ was never quite a timing and rhythm type player, that's not really his strengths, etc. etc. And it's, snorts, just like you could see why the game kind of moved beyond him a bit, because you could see how offenses started to be run and how play callers started to call plays that, like, you needed that. And unless you can really get by with your athleticism, once that starts to fade, there's kind of nowhere to go. And the more structured you are and the better you are at playing within that structure, the more success you're going to have. And I'll say, like, that's like kind of like the biggest concern with a Kyler Murray right now, where it's just like you're going to ask him to play in a way that's like not as his normal basis and not what then maximizes this offense and maximizes Kevin O'Neill's vision as well. That is why Sam Darnold can have a ton of success, because he can play within structure. He can do that. That's why he was able to thrive with Kevin O'Connell essentially instantly, and same thing with Clint Kubiak, etc., etc. And so again, no doubt are there going to be some moments when you're like, wow, Kyler Murray absolutely bailed this team out, or bailed this play out, bailed this drive out, whatever it is, like you're absolutely going to have those moments. And that's great in the short term, but again, I look at the Minnesota Vikings through the lens of the long term. I'm not looking for them just to be like, okay, can they right this ship? Can they get back on track? It's like, no, how do they position themselves to win a Super Bowl? How do they position themselves to win, at the minimum, the division, right? Not just be a more entertaining watch and yeah, they're a contender. Like, there's certain teams where I'm just like, yeah, no, they're a contender. And like, that's good enough. It's like, yeah, no, they're a pretty good team competing. It's going to be fun once they're in the playoffs. It'll be interesting. And that's who I think the Minnesota Vikings can be with Kyler Murray. No question about it. But it's just like I don't put them in that box because of how close they've been over these years and the teams that they've built, and how much I respect the franchise and the roster and some of the big playmakers they have in Kevin O'Connell, etc., and Brian Flores. I'm like, no, like what? Like, these are the moves that you need to be able to understand to get you to a Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl. And I still struggle to see that with Kyler Murray. So, snorts, I think it'll very much just give me the sense like, again, kind of like, and again, these comps are not saying that they're this type of player. It's the feeling I get when I watch them. And Dak may have not been the best example. Baker Mayfield, I think I made this comp before, where it's just like it's very much kind of like a Baker, where there's absolutely moments when I'm like, alright, like this is, yeah, man. That's good. That's legit. Like that is genuinely an awesome play. And then you go on a stretch where you go, oh, nope. See, this is exactly the quarterback who I thought he was. Like, even I got fooled for a second. And I think that's the box that Kyler Murray finds himself in. Alright. And that's the same thing with Baker Mayfield as well. Geno Smith in the past. Geno Smith has obviously lost his luster a little bit. And it's who maybe people thought Sam Darnold was. And he had to prove that wasn't the case. He had to prove that wasn't the case. And he did, and he did. And again, maybe you can say that'll be Kyler Murray, but it's just like I don't know how much Kyler has actually grown as a quarterback over these years, because he constantly relies on his playmaking abilities, his athleticism, etc. That's not how you grow and evolve in the NFL. It's just not. And how will he work with Kevin O'Connell? It's going to be really, really interesting. But I'm telling you right now, what can make Kevin O'Connell special, what makes him great as an offensive coach, is having a quarterback who can genuinely execute his offense. It's why he worked so well with the Kirk Cousins. It's why he worked so well with the Sam Darnold, right? It's why he works well with those types of Quarterbacks. That's why the Sean McVays and the Shanahans consistently want those Kirk Cousins, and why you can throw in Phillip Rivers, cause they're like they execute the vision of the offensive coach. They run the plays as advertised as they're supposed to be, as scripted, and they run them at an incredibly high level. And then you have the other category of quarterbacks who like that's not their strengths and they make up for it in other aspects, right? But it's like, what do we got here? So it'll be interesting. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Kyler Murray having something to prove? Will he have a career year with the Minnesota Vikings? And does that matter? Like, I really want to know, Minnesota Vikings fans, like where are you at right now with what you expect from your team, and what do you demand from your team? Is it just to make the playoffs, win a playoff game? I'd be happy with getting to the NFC Championship game, or it's just where do you stand right now? What are your expectations? What do you want to demand from your franchise, considering how the last 4 or 5 years or so have unfolded? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. So, if you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Subject that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.